asked a few times where we get our water from in our water system on our boat. So along the network, there's water points which are free to use for boaters because you pay for them in your licensing fee. Now they're usually at the side of the canal on a post with a padlock on it. Some of them haven't got padlocks on, and some of them are inside buildings, and you access those with a British Waterways key, which is a BW key, which is what Canal and River Trust used to be. So we fill our tank up at the front with a hose pipe, just a normal hose pipe. It's not a food grade one, and we've never had any problems with it. So this is the well deck of our boat, and underneath this area is our water tank. Now we've got a stainless steel water tank fitted, which was retrofitted by the previous owner. Before that, it was just a steel water tank. Obviously steel and water don't mix, so it had to be painted on a regular basis, and then it still wasn't fit for drinking. So he cut this floor out and fitted a stainless steel water tank, and you access that from this point here. So this is the filler cap for the water, and you undo that with one of these keys. There's 3 points on this. One of the points is for water, one's for your diesel tank, and one is for your pump out. And the reason that the pump out is completely different to the rest of it is for people that are hard of thinking, so that they don't fill the water tank, so they don't fill the pump out tank with diesel or water. So that's the reason why that one's like that. We don't have a pump out, so we don't use that. You can still take the diesel tank and the water tank off with either end, it doesn't really matter. So you just put that in, you unscrew it. And that's our water tank. This also goes into the water tank, and this is to let air into the tank when we drain it through the tap, so there's not a vacuum in there. So we put our hose pipe in there and we fill it up. Now, because this isn't the original floor, because the previous owner took it up, it's not sealed around this edge properly. That's another job that I need to do. It was originally, but because we've been standing on it, it's been flexing. The silicone that's been used has cracked a little bit, so it's not 100% watertight. So the first time we filled it up, the tank, it overflowed, ran along here, went through the gap, and ended up coming into the boat underneath there. So to stop that, and until I fix it, we use one of these, which is a water sensor, which I've also put underneath the water pump and the shower pump as well. So if they have a leak, it sets the siren off and lets us know. So if there's water gets on this and bridges the connection, it goes off with a horrible noise. I'll just turn it on and see if I can. They are really sensitive, so it might just work with me touching it. So it's really loud. So we put this end inside the water tank, and then once the water gets up to a certain level, it lets us know by the siren, so I know that the tank's nearly full, so it just stops it overflowing. So from the water tank, it then comes out the bottom of the water tank here, goes into a little mesh filter there, which stops any debris going into the pump, and then it goes into the water pump. The water pump's a pressurised water pump, so once it gets to a certain pressure, it turns itself off. So when you open a tap, the pressure drops and the pump kicks back in again. To extend the life of the pump, and just meaning that the pump's not coming on constantly all the time, even if you just have the tap on for a couple of seconds, we have an accumulator tank, which is basically, it's got like a balloon in there. So the pump pumps water into the accumulator tank and holds it at a certain pressure, and then if you open a tap, it uses the pressure that's in the accumulator tank first instead of using the pump. Once that pressure's dropped, then the pump kicks back in again and repressurizes that tank. From the tank and the pump, it then runs along this side of the boat, and you come to a tap, and you literally, exactly the same as in a house, turn your tap on and water comes out of it. So that's using the accumulator tank first, and then once it's used that pressure up in there, then the pump will kick in. Also runs to our bathroom taps as well, to our shower, and to the pump on our toilet system. For our drinking water, we've also got a charcoal filter, which is underneath the sink for the kitchen, which is where we drink most of the water from. So we fill the kettle up there for having cups of tea, and we drink water from the tap. In the bathroom, we mainly just use that for cleaning our teeth. So our charcoal filter is just under here. The Jabsco aqua filter that I've just noticed is leaking a little bit, so I need to sort that out. So basically the cold water comes in, it runs through charcoal, which helps clean any impurities out, gets rid of any bad taste or bad smell or anything like that, and then takes it straight up to the tap on top. All of the grey water on a boat goes into the canal, so that's anything from a sink and a shower goes into the canal, not toilet water. Toilet water goes into a separate tank that's called black water. So the grey water comes in and goes out the side of the boat. So that's why you need to make sure that the things that you use are biodegradable and environmentally friendly. So you can't use things like drain unblocker, bleach or anything like that, because it's going into the water system where the wildlife are. For the hot water on our boat, it uses the same method, comes from the same cold water tank, but there's 3 different ways that the water gets heated up on our boat. So the first way is the back boiler on the back of our stove. So when the stove is lit, there is a tank at the back of our stove, which is what these pipes are here. When the fire's on, the hot water in the tank heats up, then that gets pumped along the boat, and it goes into our calorifier, which is basically a hot water tank. Inside the calorifier there's a coil tube which the water from the back boiler runs through, so it doesn't mix the waters at all. So the water in the back boiler never comes in contact with the water in the calorifier, which is the hot water tank. There's a tube inside it, so they're always separated. It just transfers the heat. Our calorifier is located underneath our bed. It's pretty hard to get to. It's got a box round it, and we've also put an old duvet cover around it as well, just to keep the warmth in a bit more. If we have the water heated, it lasts about 48 hours and it's still pretty warm after 48 hours. So our second method for hot water is from our engine. So just like in a car engine, there's water that runs around it to help cool the engine. So down there is the skin tank. So that's basically like your radiator on your car. So on one side of it is the canal water, which is cooler, and the hot water from the engine goes into there, disperses the heat into the canal. Again, it's not mixed. This is a keel cool boat, so it goes out through the keel, it goes out into the canal, the heat. There is boats that use water directly from the canal, which goes through some filters which are called raw water cooled engines. They tend to be the older style boats, so that helps cool the engine. To make use of this heat source, there's also the hot water also travels along these pipes and again goes into the calorifier, and exactly the same as the back boiler on the stove, there's another separate coil in there as well. So there's 2 coils in our calorifier, and that transfers the heat from the engine into the calorifier hot water. So we harness that hot water from the engine, and then the cooler water comes back through this pipe, back into the engine, takes some more of that heat away, and then takes it back to the clarifier. Our third way of heating the hot water is through an immersion heater. So just like in a house, we have an electric immersion element at the bottom of the clarifier, which looks like the old style kettle elements, which you can't see, it's built into the clarifier. And that is just literally, you press the switch. So you turn it on and then it generates hot water. We mainly use that when we're in the marina, when we're on shore power. Our inverter will run it, but it's a 1 kilowatt immersion heater, and it's a lot to take out with the batteries. It will run it, our batteries will run it, but we've got AGM batteries, not got lithium batteries. So by using that, if we're not plugged into shore power, we'll be shortening the life of our batteries. So we don't use that unless we're on shore power. So that's basically it. That's where we get our water from. That's where we get our hot water from. It's all pretty simple, really. If you like the video, give us a like. If you've not liked the video, give us a like. If you've not already subscribed, please do. It means a lot to us. It doesn't really mean a lot in the real world, but in YouTube world, it does mean a lot to us. It makes us feel loved. If you want to be notified of any new videos that get released, just click the little bell icon and YouTube will send you a little message every time we release a video. Thanks a lot, bye.
Thank you.